Welcome to another edition of the Good and Plenty podcast. I am your host, Jeff Goodman, and we're coming to you from lovely Las Vegas, where I've been here all week, and we'll spend Thanksgiving here. Plenty of tournaments, 3 college hoops tournaments here in Vegas this week. Remember, you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, find us on CLNS Media. You can find me at Goodman Hoops on Twitter. WatchStadium.com. Please give us your reviews and any feedback you have. Remember, the Good and Plenty podcast comes to you every Tuesday, NBA edition, every Thursday, the College Hoops edition. And my guest this week, none other than my guy, NBC Sports, Rob Dauster. We'll talk some Duke. We'll talk some James Wiseman picking Memphis over Kentucky. We'll give you our favorite players. And I have found my favorite player in college basketball here in Las Vegas. And my guess is you have never, ever heard of this dude. He comes from north of the border, and he is an absolute beast. But now let's get to NBC's Rob Dauster. Quick break to tell you today's show is brought to you by The Athletic. If you haven't heard about The Athletic by now, you must be living under a rock. These guys have been crushing it every day with every element of sports coverage imaginable. Whether you're looking for specific local coverage with beat guys, sports discussed under a national lens, or everything and anything in between, you got to make sure you take a look at The Athletic. There's no pop-ups, no ads, just high-quality content waiting behind every single click. You got NBA guys, Zach Harper, Frank Isola, Sam Amick, who's been a guest in the show, Shams Charania, who's been a guest and also a colleague of mine. They have you covered in everything NBA related. If you want college hoops, we got my guy Seth Davis. You got Dane O'Neill, Brian Hamilton. They have an army over there. You can't get content like this anywhere else. 600 to 750 new articles a week. Who else is pushing out quality content like that at that rate? If you haven't signed up yet, take advantage of this deal because it's not going to last forever. Go to theathletic.com/Goodman. Get 40% off your monthly subscription. That's a subscription for less than $3 a month just by going to theathletic.com/Goodman. Shams, Amick, Harper, Dane O'Neill, Seth Davis, Brian Hamilton. I can go on and on and on forever. All for less than $3 a month. Sign me up. Sign yourself up, too, for theathletic.com/Goodman. Now, pleased to welcome into the Good and Plenty podcast a returning guest. I told you I would have you on again. You did that well, Rob Dauster, and you get another return engagement. And, you know, I'm sitting here now. We're recording this. I don't even know what day it is. Wednesday morning. I'm in Vegas at the Cosmopolitan. Woke up early to do some stuff for Stadium and now tape this podcast. I got my daughter sleeping in the other room, so I'm trying to keep it a little bit quieter than usual, which is hard for me to do. Have you ever seen a Cirque du Soleil show anywhere?
No, I haven't. I've never even been to Vegas.
I know you've never been to Vegas. I didn't know if there were Cirque du Soleil shows anywhere else. I think there are around the country. I think they have them. But so I've never been. I've never been to a show for all the times I've been to Vegas. Never been to a show because this is only the second time I've been with my wife, and my 15-year-old daughter is in Vegas for the first time. And so far they love it. You know, we walked around all the hotels yesterday, did every, you know, not every hotel, but we did a ton of them. Walked through, they shopped. I got a couple things. And today we'll hit like New York and Circus have like roller coasters and rides and everything like that. But we got show because everybody said like Cirque du Soleil, you got to see it. And I figured that was the best one to do with my daughter as well. So we go last night and we're excited to go. And I was kind of disappointed.
In the Cirque du Soleil?
Yeah, it wasn't that good.
Wow, I thought that you would love it.
My daughter was falling asleep. I mean, legitimately like nodding off over and over and over. You know, Beatles, the music was good, but it's just like all it is like a soundtrack of the Beatles songs. It's not like you got anybody singing the Beatles songs. It's, you know, and there's some, you know, acting almost. There's not a lot of like high flying stuff. There's some, but it's not like eye popping. The coolest thing was actually like 4 dudes going up and down these ramps on skateboards. That was the coolest part of the whole show.
Don't they like climb ropes and stuff like that? And
They
like hold
do.
themselves. It's like circus stuff, right?
Yeah, it wasn't. To me, it wasn't enough circus stuff. I needed some clowns or
Well, don't worry, you were so they had
elephants.
plenty of clowns.
I was there. They had at least one clown, but I needed like an elephant. I don't know. I needed something else.
It was a
Just,
different Vegas experience for you. Huh? I can't imagine you are the kind of guy that is a connoisseur of the Vegas shows.
I'm not. I'm not. But I wanted to start to become the connoisseur of Vegas shows last night, and I would give it like a flat out C.
You couldn't justify bringing a 15-year-old into Hakkasan, huh?
No, I was not going to do that. That would not be the move. That would not be the move to make. Although, where were we? Oh, we went into there's a good lunch spot that I went to a couple years ago. Somebody told me to go to called Stadium Club or something like that, which is fitting for where I work now. And they have stadium seating and a million TVs and everything. And so we were going to go there for lunch and watch part of whatever games were on at that point. And we showed up and they were like, all right, your IDs. And I'm like, huh? And you had to be 21 to get in. So my daughter, we couldn't go there. We went somewhere else for a quick bite to eat. And then, like I said, we just walked the strip. And, the Venetian was cool. They loved that. I hadn't really been in the Venetian. Paris, they loved. I mean, all the ones that are kind of unique. They really thought was pretty cool. And then the nightcap was good. We got back. My daughter went to sleep. At about midnight, we walked down and played blackjack, and both did fared well in about a half hour. So we won like I don't know, $700, and then went upstairs and went to bed.
I did not fare well last night gambling. Thanks a lot, Bruce Pearl.
Yeah, why did they cover?
No, they didn't cover, and they didn't hit the over. Because Bruce, so do you want to get into that now, or do you have any more Vegas stories?
Get into it. Now we can get into it. Let's do it.
So
what was the spread?
The spread was it opened at 10, it closed at 11. The over under. How about this? It opened at 162 and it closed at 171 because everyone expected Auburn to play the way that they usually played. Yep. And Bruce actually did a pretty smart thing, and it was good coaching. He decided to, instead of pressing and instead of trying to run with Duke, which I don't think anybody in the country is going to be capable of doing, he decided to try to make it a half-court possession-by-possession game. And they played defensively like they're normally more of a pressing team, but they played something. It's called gapping defense, which is more or less like what Virginia does, where they don't give up penetration. They keep you on the perimeter and they make you shoot jump shots over the top. And that's not really how Auburn. Yeah, it's smart. It's how they always play.
That's the way, if you can play Duke, you should play Duke because you want them to settle for jump shots. If they get to the basket, that's where they're certainly more dangerous. I
agree. But the frustrating part for me was that Bruce Pearl was doing this when they were down by 12 with 3 minutes left.
Yeah.
It's like he was playing to keep it close instead of playing to win. And I was kind of banking on the fact that he was going to get out and press a little bit at the end. We were going to get like 2 or 3 Zion dunks and RJ Barrett throwing no-look passes the length of the court, and we were going to get some layups, and that over was going to hit, and it was going to cover 10.5. But nope, Bruce Pearl played for the cover and played for the under. And yeah,
so maybe Bruce Pearl had big money on this.
Nah, yeah. Well, you said it, not me.
I'm kidding.
No, but here's the thing: like that's how you have to play to beat Duke, right?
Yeah, I think so. Now, again, you get away from what you do. Sometimes that changes things up. But I do. I think that's the only way or the most effective way to beat Duke. And that's why I think Duke's going to lose a couple games, especially in the road. Like, I guess somebody asked Kay after the game, it was probably Parrish, about running the table. I don't know. I guess he had an answer to that question or something, or he commented on the fact that we're going to lose a couple games. So I have no idea what the question was. But again, I'm just putting it on Parrish because he's dumb enough after 5 games to ask that question. They're 5-0, right? They're 5-0. They haven't played in a road venue yet, these freshmen. And we're going to start to talk. And 2 of those games were pretty easy competition. So they've beaten 2 teams that are pretty good, Kentucky talent-wise, and Auburn from a perspective of experience and talent. But that's it. That's it. And again, it's not like they ran away from Auburn last night. I mean, they played well. They could have run away from Auburn, but they didn't. And I think a big part of that, again, is I don't know if I trust this team to be the perimeter shooting team they were coming out of the gates. Shot it so well early. They're not that good a shooting team from the perimeter. Zion Williamson is probably a low 30% three-point shooter right now. R.J. Barrett is probably a mid 30% three-point shooter. People are talking like Cam Reddish is like Kyle Korver right now. He's not that. He's a good three-point shooter. But again, that to me, the way to beat them is somehow keep them from getting the basket. Not so easy, but it can be done.
Yeah, and I think Trey Jones is a guy that needs to be a 40% three-point shooter for him. And I'm not sure what he's shooting on the year, but he hasn't shot a lot of them.
He's not. He's not that good a shooter. Again, their best shooter is Alex O'Connell.
Yeah, well, Trey on the season is actually 5 for 9, but he's taken, like I said, 9 threes in 5 games is not exactly.
Yeah, we don't know yet.
We don't know. Small samples. There you go. But the thing that really impressed me last night was actually what Duke was able to do defensively. I thought that so the thing about them with this lineup they have and all these switchable pieces and 3 guys that can guard college 4s and also guard college 2s is that they can get out and kind of play like that typical Duke man-to-man defense where they'll really get out and guard you and they'll overplay the wings and they take you out of what you want to do. And Trey Jones, people are always going to make the comparison to Tyus because that's the easiest thing to do because they're brothers. But the way that he plays is very, very different from what Tyus did. Like Tyus read the basketball game as well as anyone. I think I told this when you were on my podcast. I think that we talked about this. Tyus is going to be a great coach one day because he just understands how to play the game. He understands defenses. He understands what looking one way will do to move people somewhere so someone else will get open. Like he's a basketball savant. Trey is more of he's a little bit bigger. He's more athletic. He's a very, very, very good and tough defender. And he is a guy that can really get up in you defensively. And I think that him at the point of attack in their defense, combined with 3 guys that are going to be able to be switchable and get out and defend on the perimeter, like that makes them a really good team. And I'm going to let you go on this one. Now apparently Marquise Bolden is back.
How did this happen? I mean, listen, I'm just shocked Marquise Bolden is still in a Duke uniform his junior year because I thought so many different things could have happened, right? I mean, first you thought he was a one and done for sure, but he didn't play his freshman year. I still thought after his freshman year, he might just throw his name in just because he was so frustrated or transfer. Didn't do that. Sophomore year was really no better. A little bit better, but really not. Decides to come back again this year. And he has 11, 9, and 7 and looked like the player that Duke wanted him to be all along. I mean, I guess that's probably unfair because they expected even more from him offensively than he gave him last night. But he's a guy who was blocking shots, running the court. And I think the biggest thing, and I'm really happy for him. I really am because, again, anytime you got a kid that's got those expectations on him, doesn't live up to him early, it's hard when he watches all those other guys go to the NBA and he's sitting there, the last man standing. But I think it was a combination of things, Rob. I think part of it was basketball IQ. He didn't have it from the outset. Then he got hurt, so the conditioning wasn't there. Had to learn the system, learn the college game, and K didn't give up on him, which I thought he may. I thought he might run him out, in a way that coaches run guys out, which is, hey, listen, you know what? You're not going to play. You're not. We got better players coming behind you. You might want to transfer to TCU or, he's from Texas or SMU. Those were the schools that were prominently mentioned when he was contemplating transferring, which I was told he was the last couple of years. But good for him. And obviously good for Duke. Not like they need him, but if they have him at some sort of consistent level with your boy Jack White, it's going to be harder to beat Duke.
Yeah, Jack White has been surprisingly. That's been a little bit of a different disappointment for me has been Javin DeLaurier, which is why I think Marquise Bolden has been able to step up. Like DeLaurier hasn't played more than 15 minutes in a game yet this season, and I think so. I think the reason that Bolden is kind of put into a position to succeed, and remember, we're just reacting off of one game when he hasn't done all that much in the first 4 games. But the reason that he's kind of in a spot where he can have this impact is he's not really being asked to do anything other than, be really big in front of the rim and block shots when they get there, play really hard and go after the offensive glass and, catch the ball and dunk it. He's not being asked to score in the post. He's not being asked to really get out and switch all that much in ball screens. He's not being asked to do anything too complicated. They basically are just putting him in a position, especially last night, where they said, look, you're 7 foot, you got a big wingspan, you're pretty athletic. Go out there and play hard and see what happens. And last night he was able to get some of those blocks because, like I said, the way that Duke's defense works is they are going to get out and press you on the perimeter. They're not going to let you rotate the ball. They're not going to let you pass to the other side of the floor. And they're basically going to dare you to try to beat a one-on-one. And if you go by like Zion or you go by R.J. Barrett or Trey Jones on the perimeter and you get all the way to the rim, all of a sudden, boom, there's Marquise Bolden right there. So having that kind of shot blocking presence really does help them defensively. And again, that's part of the reason I was impressed with what they were able to do on that end. Like, it feels like ever since Duke went to this one and done mantra, since they started getting guys like Austin Rivers and Jabari Parker and even with Jahlil Okafor, it's always been, will Duke be good enough on the defensive end of the floor to be able to win a national title? And, other than 2015, the answer has basically always been no, right? Well, now look, they're really, really, really good defensively, and they might have the 3 best players in college basketball.
So now they play Gonzaga in the title game in Maui tonight. Without Killian Tilly, I don't think the Zags beat them. I don't. I mean, I hope it's a really good game, but I just don't know if I trust the Zags without Tilly yet. Like, Perkins has been so up and down. Bunch of turnovers a couple games ago. I like Perkins, and they're older. I mean, the thing is, they're older, which should give them a major advantage right now. Like, that Kentucky team was so young, they were shell-shocked. Auburn, yeah, they're older, but they're not as talented as Gonzaga. They don't have the athleticism up front that Gonzaga has with Brandon Clark and Rui Hachimura. But I don't think this is the matchup where Duke loses. I don't. I think it's, in Charlottesville, at Syracuse, at the Dome, something like that, at Carolina and Chapel Hill at the end. I don't think they get that far, but I don't think they lose to this Gonzaga team. But if Gonzaga had Tilly, I would say then it's more of a pick 'em because you're not quite as reliant on Zach Norvell and Josh Perkins and some of those other guys. You got Tilly up front with Rui, with Clark. That's an athletic front court that I think would make it very difficult for Duke to drive on and finish around the bucket and even get to the line, which is kind of their forte right now.
So the thing about Tilly, like, I agree with you, not having him on the floor is a major issue for him. And it's not just because of the athleticism part of it. Like, he is a guy that you can run offense through. Like, they basically have one initiator on that team, and it's Josh Perkins. And Josh Perkins, like, look, man, he can make some really, really impressive plays. And
he's so up and down.
4 or 5 times a game, he'll do something where you're just like, what do you see there that makes you think that what you just did was a good idea? That legitimately happened 4 times last night against Arizona, and 3 times in the first half when they got down by 13. So I don't know if I trust him. And we talked about Trey Jones, man. Putting Trey Jones on Josh Perkins, I think, could end up not being great for Gonzaga. And here's my issue with them having a chance to beat Duke tonight, right? So if you told me that you could give me Corey Kispert, who, like, you're gonna love that dude, and like,
I do. I already love him. He hasn't played well yet. He
is Goodman. Yeah. When you figure out who he actually is, then you're gonna love that dude because he's smart. He's 6'6". He's athletic. He can really, really guard. He can make threes. Yeah. So put him on the floor with Rui and Brandon Clark, and you have 3 guys that can kind of match up. Nobody's going to match up like when it comes to size, length, height, athleticism, all that stuff with Duke's big 3 wings. But those guys are as good as any 3, as close as you're going to get with anybody in the country. The problem is they play the 3-4-5. If you want them to match up with Duke's 2-3-4, it means either Josh Perkins or Zach Norvell has to be on the bench. Or you put one of those 2 on the bench and you play Zach Norvell and you hope that he can stay in front of like a Cam Reddish and contest threes or whatever it ends up being. So I don't know like on paper, I see how these individual matchups work. But if you put Gonzaga's best five out there and you put Duke's best five out there, then I don't like there's someone is going to have a mismatch because the lineups just don't align perfectly, or Gonzaga's not going to have their best five on the floor. So that's a little bit of a concern to me. The other part of it, like I said, is Josh Perkins against Trey Jones. When Duke gets in their half court defense and they really try to get in you and they really try to guard you, you're going to tell me that Josh Perkins is going to be able to break down Trey Jones and make the right play enough that they don't get burned by dumb turnovers or wasted.
He should, Rob. He's a fifth-year senior, damn it. Like against a freshman who's in his sixth college game, he should be able to be very effective in this game. But I'm with you. I mean, you don't know what you're going to get, and that's where, to me, Josh Perkins is the key to this game. If Josh Perkins
He's the key to Gonzaga's whole season.
Sure is. Well, so is Tilly. Tilly getting back healthy is also a major key. But you're right.
Yeah, you're right. But here's the thing. If Tilly gets back healthy and Perkins is still a red flag, like, look, if he can't find a way in a game where they're playing the best team in the country, where his ability to make plays against a freshman point guard is going to kind of determine whether or not this team has a chance to win. If he can't win that matchup, then it doesn't matter if Killian Tilly is coming back. This team can't win the title.
Right, and that's what you're playing.
Am I going too strong on that?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to another Final Four, but you're right. You're not winning 6. You can win 4 with Perkins, although I think it'll be hard, like you said, because I think Perkins, the floor is low and the ceiling is really high. So I think that's the hard part when you're dealing with Josh Perkins is you just want some consistency.
Yeah, and the worst part about it is you'll get his floor on one play, you'll get his ceiling on the next play, and then you'll get his floor again on the play after that. Like, it's not like he has great games and bad games. He has great possessions and bad possessions that are back to back to back to back to back. It's just like, come on, man, give me something. You're a fifth-year senior. Like, we shouldn't be going through these. Like, he's doing freshman things. I think that's the best way to phrase it.
So where are you on this Duke undefeated talk? Are you on the ridiculous side? Are you on the I'm starting to buy it a little bit and maybe it could happen side? Or are you like, yeah, they can run this thing?
I think that they are the kind of team that is going to be favored in just about every game that they play the rest of the season. I think
breaking news there, Rob.
No. But I got a thought here. Let me get through it. Let me get through it. I think that, like Kentucky in 2015, they are kind of in a tier all by themselves this season. And like, I don't want to say that they can't do it. I think as much as anybody in the last 10 years, like, they have the ability to do it. I don't think that it'll happen. I'll never bet on a team going undefeated ever. Like, I'll always say that I don't think that they're going to do it. They'll get picked off. Who's on the road?
In a way, how cool would it be if they were able to make it to March 9th and they go into Chapel Hill playing a Carolina team that I think is really good. I'm going to see them here tomorrow and Friday in Vegas. Like, how cool would that be to have them play in Chapel Hill at the Dean Dome undefeated?
North Carolina matches up as well with them as anybody does. They have the big wings. Kenny Williams can really guard. Yep. Cam Johnson looks like a new guy. We talked about this, man. Like, he's moving better. He looks more athletic. He's making threes. Nazir Little can match up with any of Duke's 3 wings. And then they have the size up front. The question with them is going to be point guard play. And, by March 9th, hopefully Kobe White will be playing like he's a sophomore. Like that. What's that saying, right? By March, freshmen are sophomores.
Yeah, no doubt. He'll be fine by then. I mean, he'll be what he is by then at least. And either he'll have figured out the position or he'll still be a straight 2 guard who's just putting up numbers at that point and can score it. And maybe they don't need a true point guard. But yeah, I just don't. I mean, listen, Jay Will coming out and saying that Duke could beat the current Cleveland Cavaliers team. Like, come on, Jay Will, really?
Yeah, and here's the issue with that. Here's my take on that. You ready for a hot take? Here's my take on that.
What do you got?
The problem there is not the 4 freshmen. The problem is that the 4 freshmen are just 4 of 9 or 10 players that would be in that rotation. Right. You're going to tell me that Javin DeLaurier and Jack White and Marquise Bolden will be able to handle an end-of-bench scrub in the NBA? Like, do people realize how good NBA players are? Jay Will should. Right. He played in the NBA. He should know how good NBA basketball players are. You're going to tell me that Alex O'Connell is going to go out there and D up the 9th man for the Cavs? He's not.
I think Jay Will. Listen, what I think probably happened was he was on the set last night with like Adnan Burke and Seth Greenberg, and something happened and he suffered some sort of concussion or something, because there's just no way. I mean, again, like Tristan Thompson, still, like, those guys are really going to be able to score going to the basket on Tristan Thompson? Like George Hill. George Hill is like a 10-year NBA vet. He would tear Trey Jones apart. Tear him up. Jordan Clarkson would tear Trey Jones apart. How are those guys going to guard?
No, they're not. And here's the other part about it. I'll tell you this much. Marquise Bolden is not going to get 11 points, 9 boards, and 7 blocks if he's going up against Tristan Thompson. Because Tristan Thompson and Marquise Bolden are like the same player. It's just that Tristan Thompson does every single thing on a basketball court better than Marquise Bolden by like leaps and bounds.
I mean, what do you think Cleveland wins by? Neutral court, 20 points?
I would probably set the over-under or the line at about 20. 22, something like that. And I would probably take the Cavs. The only reason that I would be a little bit hesitant to take the Cavs covering is that they might get up by 50 in the first half and then end up playing like the team managers and the assistant coaches and, maybe the radio guy down the stretch, because it's such a blowout.
We need to make this happen somehow. Like, we need to settle this once and for all somehow. And just get Duke, those guys on an off day. You and I can pull up some money or something and fly them to Cleveland and play on a high school gym somewhere. So it's not against NCAA rules or something like that. We just need to settle this so people will stop talking about the fact that the best college team, which is, oh, by the way, 5 games into their college careers, you're not even saying it at the end of the year when, if they've somehow run the table, then you're talking about it. You're talking about 5 games into their college careers, the fact that they can beat an NBA.
It'll never happen. It's a dumb conversation to have. Can we go back to when Duke is going to lose this season?
Yes.
It's either going to – I think it's going to come against Virginia. Virginia plays at Duke on January 19th, and they play in Charlottesville on February 9th. And we talked about the way that you want to beat Duke is to control tempo, to play a gapping defense where you make them shoot jumpers over the top, and to run – sustained offense and execute offense against them. And that's literally what Virginia does. Auburn last night tried to turn themselves into Virginia. Auburn doesn't do Virginia better than that. Nobody does Virginia better than Virginia. So that's where they're going to lose to me.
And Auburn trying to do Virginia. Come on. They actually did a good job of it.
They didn't do a bad job of it. My only issue, and I'm kind of just half joking because I'm pissed that I lost a bet, right? But it's the only issue I had with what Bruce Pearl did is that down the stretch, when it became very clear that he had to get points in a hurry, he kept going the same way. But even then, it's like if you're down by 9 with 3 minutes left and you start trying to press, Duke is going to break that press. If you start trying to go up and down with them for the last 3 minutes, we saw what happened in the first 5 minutes of the first half when they got down by 14, and the first 4 minutes of the second half when Duke made that run and pushed the lead to 17 or whatever it was. I don't know, you just can't run with Duke. So I don't really fault him for it, but it's just kind of that should tell you how dangerous they are, that Bruce Pearl, with 3 minutes left down by 9, was scared to try to run with them because he didn't want to get run out of the gym and he wanted to keep it close enough where he had a puncher's chance.
All right, so the other big news came on the off the court. James Wiseman, whatever, number 1, 2, 3, whatever you want to call him, whether you believe he's the number 1 player in the country. I don't know if I do, but whatever the case, he's an elite level recruit, 6'10", skilled, athletic, long. He looks the part for sure. It was a recruiting battle between, and I don't think it got enough hype going in, but John Calipari and Kentucky against his former school at Memphis, and Penny Hardaway, their new coach, who's won 2 games so far. And they go head-to-head, and everybody thinks it's a complete mismatch. And this kid, Wiseman, moved from Nashville to Memphis a couple years ago and has played for Penny Hardaway both in AAU and in high school the last year or two. And Memphis ends up coming out on top and getting James Wiseman. And I said, Memphis is back. That's what I tweeted. I said, Memphis basketball is back. And everybody kind of tore into me. Well, what have they done? They haven't done anything on the court. I'm like, no, I get it. But at least they're relevant now. They're nationally relevant where they've got James Wiseman and DJ Jeffries, who's a top 50 recruit coming in next year, and they may get more than that. They may get the kid training in Watford. Who knows what else they get, but they are relevant. First thing is, like, were you surprised at all? And I'm not talking about just yesterday, because yesterday I think everybody kind of knew it was going to happen leading up to it, or the last couple days. I knew it was a foregone conclusion that Memphis was going to get him. But are you just overall shocked still that Penny Hardaway and Memphis just beat John Calipari in Kentucky for the number one, or arguably the number one player?
This is going to sound weird, but not really. Like that's what happens in Memphis, right? Like when Memphis, to me, is an entirely unique kind of basketball city in that there's nothing Memphis fans want to do more than root for players on Memphis University, on the Memphis Tigers, that they watch play high school basketball in Memphis, right? They want to root for their own. And I know that James Wiseman is from Nashville or whatever, but he played for Penny at East High School. He played for Team Penny. He played after EYBL ended, after it wasn't Team Penny anymore. It was the Bluff City Legends, but it was still the same program that Penny started. After the EYBL ended and he was done with the Bluff City Legends, do you know who he played with in Vegas over the summer? Hoop City Basketball Club, which before Mike Miller became the assistant coach for Anthony Hardaway was M33M, which was Mike Miller's AAU team, the one that like Scalabissiere played for. So he was always going to Memphis. And the thing about so here's my thing about the Penny story that I don't think people quite understand or quite grasp, because he's Penny Hardaway. Like, this isn't like Chris Mullin going back and coaching St. John's from like an NBA front office. This isn't like Fred Hoiberg going from the Minnesota Timberwolves. What was he, like assistant GM or something? And going and coaching his alma mater. Like Penny Hardaway, when he first got back into coaching, it was like as a middle school girls JV coach or something like that. Like, he just did it as a favor to somebody and kept working his way up. And all of a sudden he has an AU program. All of a sudden he's the coach at these high schools. All of a sudden he's winning city and state titles. All of a sudden he's making it to EYBL finals. All of a sudden he has all these kids that really connect with him because of the relationship that he's able to build. If his name was like Steve Switzer or whatever, if he wasn't Penny Hardaway, if he didn't have that profile, we would be talking about how this is a great story of a grinder that made it from the bottom of the high school ranks all the way up to coaching Memphis, how he has all these great relationships with players in the city, and how he's able to build relationships with families and build friendships with kids and be more than just a basketball coach, right? But since he's Penny Hardaway, we look at it as this NBA guy going back to coach his alma mater, and that's not really the trajectory that he's been on in his coaching career. So it does not surprise me at all that he's getting all these kids that he's built these relationships with to come play for him in college, because that's really what it's all about. Like, when it comes to recruiting, that's what it's about. It's about relationships. And
he's fortunate. He's fortunate because of the timing of all this, right? Like, Memphis has got some really good players coming up. The area does right now. That's when he's coaching AAU ball. That's when he's coaching at Memphis East, and he has these players. And, again, if you don't, you get the best players and they're fringe top hundreds, it's not going to matter. But now you've got momentum, and that's huge. That's huge because people actually do want to play.
And let me just ask you this real quick, Jeff. If he doesn't have these kids and he doesn't have these relationships and it doesn't look like
it's a failed experiment.
Well, would he be able to get that job is what I'm saying. Would he have gotten it would they have run Tubby Smith out with all the money that they had owed to Tubby and guaranteed whatever buyout money? Would Memphis have hired Penny when they hired him if he didn't have all these players?
I think the AD would have done it. I'm not sure how much the AD understood the dynamic of him having all these players and how good they were. I still think at the end of the day, everybody was killing Tubby. Everybody was killing Tubby. There was nobody in the stands. It had just become where Memphis really, they haven't been relevant nationally in a long time. You can say like Pastner had a couple good years there. He brought in Will Barton. But ultimately they haven't been really, really nationally relevant since John Calipari left. And I think now, can they do it on the court? Sure. Like, that's the biggest question now. And can they sustain it for more than a year or two? But you got to have players, and Penny Hardaway's got players, and I don't know if he's going to be a good coach or a better coach than Chris Mullin or Patrick Ewing or any of these other former players that have made the transition. But you're right. Like, he's taken a different path. He looks engaged. Certainly on the recruiting trail, he's far more engaged than you see a Chris Mullen or Patrick Ewing or some of those guys, and maybe he can sustain it. Probably depends on what other talent is coming behind these guys from Memphis and how long some of these guys stay. Wiseman's a one and done, but some of the other guys, DJ Jeffries, and if they get Watford, are they 2, 3, 4-year players to whereas you can build this thing to last, not just to hit it for a year or two, and then you go away because there's not a lot of talent in the pipeline coming out of that area. That's the key. But do you worry about like Calipari now? All right, so he dominated recruiting for so long, and he was like clearly it was like one and nobody else. And for the last couple of years, and I wrote a story about this at the McDonald's game when I was seeing all these kids, the R.J. Barretts, the Zions, and Cam Reddish, it just stuck out to me because they're all there. And I'm saying to myself, like, K is kicking his ass lately. And Jason Tatum and Harry Giles and even Bolden, who hasn't panned out. But a lot of dudes lately that K has beaten Calipari for. And now, you got Calipari. He's got 2 top 10 kids. But again, he may go this year without getting a top 5 kid, an elite level player, which is certainly what they're lacking on this Kentucky team this year, right? Keldon Johnson's probably their best recruit, and he's a stud. I love Keldon Johnson, but he's not like a top 5 lottery pick like Duke has, where they have 3 of them. And Duke beat K for all 3 of those dudes. Cal wanted all 3, and K got all 3. So, like, I ask you, what is going on with Calipari's recruiting? Not like you feel bad for him. He's still doing a hell of a job. And I love the quote where he says, "I don't think I'm the best recruiter," or something like that. Wasn't that the quote?
Yeah, I'm overrated as a recruiter.
I'm overrated as a recruiter. Like, I just feel, listen, like, come on, man. Really, I'm overrated as a recruiter? You don't believe that. You don't believe it. Don't say it. Like, it's such coach speak. You think you're the best recruiter in the country, and that's fine. You are. You just aren't lately. But is it time to worry, or is he going to get this thing back?
Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood. It's never a bad time to start thinking about your investment portfolio. Whether you're looking to buy or sell stocks, crypto, ETFs, make sure you sign up for Robinhood. And I know markets can be complicated, but Robinhood makes everything easy for you. Robinhood's going to build your own customized newsfeed right when you sign up. They sort certain stocks for you in different collections like the 100 most popular or social media or pharmaceutical, and you'll learn more about it as you go along. Get started today. Sign up is extremely easy. All it takes is 4 taps on your phone to start trading. Best part is, Robinhood doesn't charge commission fees. You keep all your profits. Robinhood is giving listeners a free stock like Apple, Ford, or Sprint to help build your portfolio. Sign up at plenty.robinhood.com. That's plenty.robinhood.com.
I don't know if it would be time to worry because he's still getting guys that are good enough to make Kentucky like a top 10 to 15 to 20 program at the very worst, right? Like what's their floor? Their floor was probably last season when they were a number 5 seed. And if PJ Washington can make a free throw, then all they had to do was beat Loyola to get to the Final Four. And if that's what the floor of your program is, then I wouldn't be too worried. He's also done a pretty good job at finding guys that might be a little bit off the radar and like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I know Kevin Knox was closer to like a top 10 guy, but I think he ended up being a little bit better than people had him projected as coming out of high school, if that makes sense. So I think I wouldn't be worried about it. I just think that these things kind of go in cycles, right? At some point people are going to look at it and say that Duke is, not getting these players anymore, that Coach K isn't able to get these guys. I think the other part of it is people have seen, and some of these guys have seen the success that someone like a Trae Young has had by going to Oklahoma and having everything built around him, that Jaylen Brown was able to be the number 3 pick coming out of Cal, despite the fact that, he didn't really play for a guy that was putting him in the best situations, and they were like a 4 seed and didn't win the tournament. So I think the other part of it is that the word is out that like Markelle Fultz going to be in the number 1 pick at Washington, despite winning 2 Pac-12 games and going 9-23. I think the word is out that you don't have to go to one of these powerhouses to get the exposure and to be the best guy. You can go to somewhere else, and instead of having Coach K tell you you got to play a role. Coach Cal tell you got to play a role. You got to be this defensive presence. You got to come off our bench. You got to be Marquise Bolden. You can go somewhere and they're going to give you 20 shots a game and you're going to average 22 and you're not going to do it very efficiently. And maybe you're not going to learn how to play, but you're certainly going to develop the kind of hype and build the kind of brand that might get you picked in the top 10. I think maybe like someone like a Kevin Porter might be a good example of that this year. I don't know if he's going to become a better basketball player for playing for Andy Enfield, but he's going to be a guy that gets his 12 to 15 shots per game, and he's going to be a guy that's able to showcase all the things that he's able to do very, very well. Everyone's going to ignore the fact that he doesn't want to play any defense and just look at the fact that he's able to be shifty one-on-one. He's going to get these step-back threes, and he's going to end up going to the top 10. So, I think that's what kids are seeing these days. The best way to get yourself some shine is to go somewhere where you're going to be the guy and maybe not the fourth option offensively as a top 10 player.
Well, Kentucky, here's the other thing. Even if Cal doesn't get the top 5 players, one of the top 5 or even 10 guys, if they go to Kentucky, they're going to be one and dones anyway, because a lot of them, because of the numbers they'll put up at a place like Kentucky, they'll get more hype. Generally, they'll move up the draft boards rather than move down the draft boards if they have the opportunities. Now, this year is a little bit different because you brought in a Reed Travis up front. So, like a kid like E.J. Montgomery is a good example. Like, we don't know where E.J. Montgomery is going to be on the board at the end of the year just because of the fact that right now there's such a logjam. But, them missing out on Wiseman is interesting because, again, Reed Travis is gone. P.J. Washington's gone. We kind of know that unless something crazy happens, he's gone. And then, do you keep Nick Richards or E.J. Montgomery? My guess is they'll keep one of the two. So now they need a big, and there just aren't a lot of bigs right now that you look at and you say that Kentucky's favorited to get. I mean, Vernon Carey doesn't appear to be going to Kentucky. It's, Duke might be the favorite there, but Michigan State's in there, I guess, and Miami's in there. So it's hard to say. Like, the craziest thing could be if Duke and Kentucky both got shut out of the top 5. And it could happen. I mean, it could happen. I don't think it will. I think Duke will probably get one. And maybe Kentucky will get one, but it very well could happen. And that would be like unfathomable if you said that a year ago.
But the one thing I will say about that is that this class, with the exception of maybe Anthony Edwards, because I haven't really thought about it with him coming in this year, is that everybody, all the top 5 players in this class, to me, are more like guys that are normally in that like 8 to 12 range in a different year, right? Like I think there are a lot of good.
I feel like we're saying that every year now. I feel like every year, like even this class,
like RJ Barrett was supposed to be the best player in the class in James Wiseman's class, but now he is already a college freshman, right? Yeah. Anthony Edwards was supposed to be in the class of 2020, but he's bumping up. So you get all these kids that are like 19 years old and juniors in high school that end up reclassifying because they were held back or for whatever reason. So I think that probably plays a role in it as well. But it's also a situation where like we're now comparing all these classes to the best classes that we've ever seen. Right, like nothing is going to compare to the 2016 class. It was just so loaded at the top, and it was so loaded as you went back. Like the top 15, top 20 guys in that class were all guys that would have been top 10 in a different class. And just comparing everything to that class instead of what the normal is, where you get like maybe 7 or 8 guys out of a class that ended up being more than just a one contract player in the NBA is probably what the norm is.
All right, so I want to close the pod with kind of a weird question, but I'm going to see my favorite player again tonight. And it's a kid that I had never seen until the other night in person, and I've fallen in love. I have fallen in love, and I don't even know how to pronounce his first name right. So I'm just going to call him Lou Dort because that's what Bobby Hurley calls him. He just calls him Lou. So to me, he's Lou. I met him the other night after the game, and that's my guy now. If you haven't seen him, you have to see this kid. He's a Canadian kid at Arizona State, a big, strong, physical freshman guard who just plays his balls off. I mean, and he does more than that. Like, plays so hard on both ends of the court. And again, he's big, he's strong. He's only about probably 6'3", if I had to guess. but he guards, he attacks, he can shoot the three, and he's got a pretty good feel too. I mean, it's got to get better. He's not a pure point guard or point guard yet, but he can see some things on the court too that you're surprised at. But this is the kid who I think is going to get Arizona State into the NCAA tournament again this year and make them a better team once they get Rob Edwards back. And he's probably a little while away from the back injury. But they beat a Mississippi State team that is far more talented, 2 nights ago. And I think Arizona State, it sets up. They're going to play Utah State in the finals here in this event, at T-Mobile tonight. And I'll tell you what, I love Lou Dort. I love Lou Dort. So I don't know how much you've seen him yet, Rob, but I'm gonna ask you your impression on Lou Dort, and then who is your guy? Who's your kind of under the radar? Who's your favorite player right now after 5 games that everybody's going to scratch their head and go, who?
So are you telling me that a Ben Howland team with a ton of talent is failing to live up to expectations?
That's what I'm going to tell you right now. Yeah, right now. And they got
could have
so
seen
much
that
talent.
one coming? Who could have seen that coming?
It's crazy how much talent they have.
It's almost like Ben Howland isn't a guy that can coach teams that have a ton of talent on it. But
like, what happened to him?
Here nor there.
But I'm watching them in person. I'm like, this can't be the same guy who was at UCLA who like overcoached, micromanaged. It was all about defense and playing hard. It's like he's become a different coach, which I think he has.
It's almost like when you are a guy that preaches defense and preaches good shot selection and preaches running through your entire offense. It's a bad idea to go out and recruit players like Shabazz Muhammad or Malik Newman or Mario Kegler or guys that have no desire in playing defense or running in any kind of structured offense. I'm just saying maybe you should recruit somebody that fits the system that you want to play. Yeah. Just putting that thought out in the universe for general good vibes. But I put entirely too much thought into this.
I can't wait. I cannot wait to hear your answer.
So I have a couple names that I have to roll through before we actually get to who my favorite player is. So Jarrett Culver is one of them at Texas Tech. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch them play this season, but Jarrett Culver looks like he's going to end up being the real deal, which means that Chris Beard is going to have taken 2 guys from the class of 2017 in Texas that weren't top 200 recruits and is going to turn them into first-round picks. Chris
Beard is like the old Ben Howland. That's what Chris Beard is.
Dude, I love watching Chris Beard's teams play. No one in the country plays harder, and I will go to my grave saying that Texas Tech would have won the Big 12 regular season title last year if Keenan Evans didn't break his toe. I will go to my grave saying that. I'm fully on the Chris Beard bandwagon.
Yeah, this dude he's ridiculous. I'm here in Vegas, and I was thinking about that. I'm like, what if he had stayed at UNLV? Like, think of how good UNLV could have been with Chris Beard and instead of Marvin Menzies. It doesn't fit necessarily the Vegas glitz and glamour, but he would have found a way to there. So, all right, so go ahead.
I'm just going to say that probably would have been a bad fit for a number of reasons, and we can leave it at that. Okay, so I have some other names for you. Alpha Diallo at Providence.
Oh, love him.
The thing, I didn't want to go with him because I know he's your guy. Like if you weren't coming off of just seeing Arizona State and you had watched Providence play last night, then we would be talking about Alpha Diallo right now. So I couldn't take your guy. The other one of your guys that I couldn't take was Fletcher McGee.
Oh, yeah. Shooter. I mean, that's a good one.
Your guy too.
That's a good one.
And since I love shooters, another guy that I considered for this was Marcus Howard. I'm the leader of the Marcus Howard bandwagon. I've talked about him as being a potential NBA guy because of the way that he can work in ball screens and the fact that he can shoot the I don't know if we're allowed to curse, but he can shoot the ever-living shit out of the ball.
Yeah. So you can say that on my podcast. You can say, I don't know about on your podcast. Can you say that?
I don't know, but I was.
You haven't done it. Have you never? Wait.
No, I curse a lot on the podcast, but here's the other day I was questioning Jay Wright, and I don't know why I said it, but I said, look, I know Jay Wright's a future Hall of Famer. I'm just a dickhead with a podcast, but I think that he's doing things that aren't exactly right. So
you are a dickhead with a podcast.
I am a dickhead with a podcast. So are we ready? I'm ready to give you my favorite player in the country now, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay, go ahead. I can't wait.
It is Zach Norvell at Gonzaga.
Wow, I love him too. Love his game.
Because I love players that have absolutely no conscience when it comes to their jump shooting. Like Zach Norvell could be 0 for 15, and he's still going to step up and shoot a 28-footer with a hand in his face if he feels like he's in rhythm. I love players like that. I also love players that can get absolutely scorching. Like, you would not be surprised if Zach Norvell hit 9 threes in a row in a basketball game. That's how hot he can get. And I love players that just have absolutely massive nuts when it comes to taking big shots. He's not afraid of the moment. He's going to step up and he's going to take a big shot, and he wants to be the guy to step up and take a big shot. So I love watching him play. When he gets hot, you're going to see me tweeting about him nonstop. I'm all in on the Zach Norvell bandwagon.
That's a good one. I actually, you know what? Like, I wouldn't have picked him, but I got no problem with that. Like, I'm with you. You want a guy that can just go off. And the other thing with Zach Norvell is he's so tough. Yes. He's just got that Chicago toughness to him, which is, again, the thing I love about Dort, part of it is what's the knock been on Canadians?
They're soft.
They're soft. This kid is the toughest MFer. I'm telling you, I'll put him up against almost anybody in the country. Like, I think he's that tough, and he goes that hard, and he doesn't complain. Like, he didn't get a call the other night, and it was a blatant missed call by a ref when he drove to the basket. Didn't get a call, went down, got hammered, is on the ground, looks at the ref for a second, just gets up, goes back, guards. Just doesn't. He's coachable. Hurley loves him. It's hard not to. I just think he's going to be a guy that takes this program. Once they get Rob Edwards back and Cheatham looked really good. The way Cheatham blocked shots, the way he made up ground. You were watching that game the other night, weren't you?
I watched. I had it on the backup TV. I'm actually I have the film on that and the film on Nebraska, Texas Tech that I'm going to roll through as soon as we're done recording this podcast. I forgot another guy on that list.
Yeah.
Sagaba Konate.
Oh, he's just such a freak. He's such a freak.
Oh, it's so much fun. My favorite thing in the world is watching people try to dunk on him, because it's never going to happen, but people just keep trying to test him, and it never works out well for you. It never does.
Really, really bad move. Well, listen, thanks for jumping on. I appreciate it. You woke me up here on an early morning in Vegas. This was good for me. I'm up now. My daughter's probably up in the next room as well on her phone, and we're gonna hit some, New York, circus. I'm really not a good roller coaster guy at all, and I feel like if I go on, I've done this in the past where I've gone on a roller coaster and then I'm like done for the day. Like, there was one instance where I went on a roller coaster and then like after I was like laid out on a park bench for the next 2 hours. So I got to be careful. I got to be careful whether I really want to push it or not. If it's one of those kind of like in between like kid adult roller coasters, I can handle it. But if it's a legit roller coaster, I'll probably just like hit the blackjack table in whatever hotel we're in.
Oh man, I didn't realize that you weren't a roller coaster guy. I love roller coasters.
I liked them when I was young. Like, I remember going when I was like 15 years old. I went to whatever in St. Louis, the big amusement park there, and did like a double loop and was fine. And you're not as old as me. Wait till you get to my age, and then maybe you will not be a roller coaster guy either. That's my guess. Give yourself a few more years.
I will say this. I've always loved like the spinny rides and the roller coaster rides and stuff like that. But the other day, I took my son, I like held his hand and spun around in a circle and literally spun just 3 times and nearly fell over. I was so dizzy. So maybe I won't get to that point.
Maybe you won't even have to get as old as me and you'll be done with roller coasters.
Man. I might be lost right now.
All right. We'll talk soon. Thanks, man. Thanks for joining us. Another edition of Good and Plenty in the books. Remember, join us every Tuesday for the NBA edition, every Thursday for the College Hoops edition. Thanks to my guest, Rob Dauster from NBC Sports, for joining us today, giving us his take on whether Jay Will is nuts to think that Duke can run the table this year. He gave us his favorite player. I'm still in Vegas for the rest of the week, spending Thanksgiving here with my family. Found my favorite player in the country, which a lot of you probably have never heard of, Lou Dort from Arizona State. I'll see him play again tonight, Wednesday night. And again, Come back, give us your reviews. iTunes, Stitcher, CLNS Media. You can find me at Goodman Hoops on Twitter, watchstadium.com, and please come back every Tuesday and Thursday to the pod.